Welcome back. Well, as I spoke about earlier in the show, the ABC has been exposed by Chris Kenny and The Australian for its misleading edit of Donald Trump's speech, where it makes it sound like he was encouraging rioters to storm the Capitol. Media Watch defended this misleading edit last night, which is extraordinary. You can only imagine how they would have attacked News Corp had we edited footage in that way. Well, joining me now, radio legend Ray Hadley. Ray,
Sharri, hello.
To see you.
Look, Chris Kenny is a vastly experienced broadcaster and journalist who's entitled to look after his own business. However, a little bit of advice for Chris. I stopped watching Media Watch about 15 years ago. I found that I woke on a Tuesday morning with what seemed like an ulcer. So I investigated, and this is some time ago, it may not be the truth today, but I presented 15 hours of live radio with myself and 3 producers. And I got criticised regularly by Media Watch, who present 15 minutes of live TV with 12 producers. Talk about a waste of resources. Chris does an hour, 4 nights a week of live TV. Media Watch has been a waste of money for the government and the ABC for quite some time, and that was illustrated by the defence on Monday night of what was a dreadful, dreadful, dreadful stuff up by Four Corners, which they should have admitted to, as Chris pointed out. And the attack on Chris should be, advice again, Chris, you don't need from me, water off a duck's back.
Yeah,
because where it is a badge of honour that they're actually talking about you.
As I'm sure it is to Chris as well. But it wasn't just that they defended. They claimed there was no anti-Israel bias at the ABC. I mean, we haven't seen worse cases of bias except in the BBC over the past 2 years.
Hang on. Pigs flying across the top of the screen. Pigs might fly, there's no bias. Dear, oh dear.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we haven't spoken yet tonight about the leadership speculation in New South Wales. Obviously, we saw the changes in Victoria today, but the eyes are also on the New South Wales Liberal leader, Mark Speakman. I mean, most people wouldn't even know that he's the Liberal leader. He's got such a low profile. There's no way he can win against Chris Minns at the next election, due in, I think, 2027. Now, Alistair Henskins is the Conservative candidate. He wants the leadership role. But again, he will have no chance against Minns. The only person who could be competitive, as we've spoken about before, is Kelly Sloan.
But she won't have a crack. I mean, she wants Speakman to stand down. I've said before about Speakman, he's a really pleasant fellow, but he's as boring as you get. He's got no traction with anyone in the community. And if you're having a Roman orgy, he'd be the one you send out for the grapes because he's that boring. And Alistair's not far behind him, I might mention. He's another lawyer, just what we need, another lawyer leading the Liberal Party. Yeah, Kelly, but I'd plead with Kelly Sloan to stop this nonsense of, I won't stand. Kelly, sometimes you've got to do things that you find unpalatable. And this is a case in point. You've got a challenge because we've got, wasn't she refreshing, Jess Wilson?
Amazing.
A breath of fresh air. It gives them some hope in November next year of perhaps troubling the Labor Party.
We hope. Clearly outlines 4 policy positions. This is what we've been saying the Liberals...
Clear and concise. Yeah. And we've got this hodgepodge... I mean, the announcement that they are going against their federal counterparts and the Nationals, both state and federal Nationals, over net zero by 2050. I mean, what planet are they on? You see, the thing about it is it's being run by moderates who are terrified their inner city seats may be at risk. Well, how about taking one for the team? Because if you actually put your stakes on the line and say, we want to go with the Nationals and we want to go with the federal Liberal Party, and yes, we might win some seats that we can't possibly win in regional Australia, and if we happen to lose a few in the... It's about self-preservation, these Liberal moderates. I mean, they want a job for the next 6 years. Well, for goodness sake, what about the fact that if you're going to govern, you've got to have some policies that counteract the policies of the Labor Party? And Chris Minns, he plays them off a break. I've got to admire him. He said, well, it's very strong stuff by Mark Speakman. Now, Chris, I've said to this, you're a good bloke, Chris, but stop this poppycock about rapping Speakman because you know if he stays there, you're 100 to 1 on to win the next election. Yeah. And you're a good premier. But we've got to stop this nonsense about rapping Liberal leaders.
Now, the supporters of Kelly Sloan have said to me that it's a matter of timing. But the election is March 2027. So even if she took on the leadership now, I mean, what is that? That's a year and 4 months or 5 months or something. for her to raise her profile across. She'd already have a higher profile than Speakman. That's not hard. So it's not that far out, really. I think there might be something. Everyone's kind of saying she's not going to do it. I think she might this week. I reckon she might.
Well, I hope she does. I hope she does. Look, as I've said, I admire Chris Minns. I think he's a good Premier.
Me too.
But to have a strong government, we've got to have a strong opposition.
Yeah.
And we've got a weak opposition under Mark Speakman at the moment, and that's got to change.
I mean, at least he's a good Premier, because in what we have in Canberra is a shocking government and a weak opposition. It's the absolute worst of both worlds.
I heard your comments earlier, and I've read the stuff in The Australian today about Andrew Hastie.
Yes.
And the possibility that he may do some sort of deal with Angus Taylor. Now, I like Angus Taylor as well, but he's not prime ministerial.
You think Hastie is?
Look, he's got a disadvantage, as Kim Beazley found out. He lives in Western Australia. But we're a far different country than we were when Kim was, the opposition leader based in Western Australia. Communication's much different, things are much different. And Hastie's a distinguished ex-serviceman, an officer in the army. He's from the right, and he'll take the fight. He'll take the fight to Penny Wong, to Tony Burke, and most importantly to Albo. He'll get up on the floor of Parliament and you watch him mix it with them if he's the leader. Now, I just don't think that Angus has the same, and this is an old expression, a rugby league expression, the same sort of mongrel in him that's required to be the leader when you're fighting. I mean, sometimes when you fight in politics, you've got to get down and get dirty. And I said a couple of times to Tony Abbott when he was copping it on the chin, I said, you've got to get down and mix it with him, Tony. You've got to get a bit dirty. When you're wrestling with pigs, you're going to get a bit of mud on you. And that's what you've got to do. And you need someone like Hastie, who's, his policies won't, entice everyone across the line.
Yeah.
But at least there are policies there that are separate to the policies of the Labor government. And I just think if we've seen what they've done in Victoria, if we see what they do in New South Wales, and I think,
Turning to the next generation, you mean?
It's a generational change, with no disrespect to Susan Lee, but she's got 24% of the primary vote.
Yeah.
I mean, Humphrey B. Bear would have 30%.
Yes.
I mean, fair dinkum.
Miss Humphrey B. Bear was my favourite when I was 2
Well, my children, of course, went with the Wiggles. Humphrey B. for people my age will remember Humphrey particularly. You love Humphrey?
He was literally my hero. I've got all these photographs meeting him at shopping centres.
Look, I don't want to spoil the party, but I was at Channel 9 one day when Humphrey took his head off.
Don't ruin it for me.
I'm sorry. It was most disconcerting for me as well to see Humphrey, his first name was Jim, but he's a good style of a bloke.
Yeah.
But he wasn't as good as Humphrey.
Very quickly before we go,
sure.
A change in the National Party as well in New South Wales today. Gurmesh Singh was elected unopposed. Now, Ray, you were mates with the former national leaders, former national leader Dugald Saunders. Who was only there a couple of years. 3 years.
But look, Dougal worked with me in the year 2000. He was a radio presenter who went to 2DU at Dubbo and worked out there. And if he says, because I know him to be a truthful fella, if he says that he's got some problems at home, that he needs to sort out, more time. When you're the national leader and Gurmesh is about to find this out, you don't spend your time in Coffs Harbour or Dubbo. You're all over the place. You're really home. And, that can put certain pressures on anyone's life, let alone a man married with children. So Gurmesh Singh is a refreshing bloke. When I was on radio, he'd ring quite often because I used to broadcast into Coffs Harbour. Yeah. And he was one of those blokes who'd pick up the phone and engage with me and have a chat about different things, different things happening in his town, whether it's law and order or bypass that's happening in Coffs Harbour and things like that. And I watched Andrew Bolt, where he said, look, I keep being called the Indian Australian, but my forebears got here in 1894. I think I'm entitled, 3 or 4 generations on to be called an Australian, and that's what he is.
Absolutely.
He's obviously proud of what his forebears have been able to achieve since they came here, but like many people, whether they came from India, Greece, Malta, Italy, or anywhere else, the people I know, they're firstly Australians who have great affection for those people who came here to start a new life.
Well said, Ray. So great to have you here. I love the segments. Tuesday this week, not Monday.
Yeah, I'll be back next Monday.
Okay, I'll see you,
See you
Monday.
then.
Thank you
All the
so
best.
much.
Thanks, Sharri.